Aren't you next to me or above or below? Doesn't it have your name? Okay. Did you unmute it? Did you unmute it? I said, did you unmute yours? Okay, and what do you get when you unmute? You don't have your picture, your name? Okay. So you're on. I just don't know where you go next. Well, what happens if you hit share screen? Post styled participant screen sharing. Okay, well, it's on. He's not on yet, but somebody's on because I'm on. What, you have two from me? I don't know what you do next. Maybe I see. I don't know. Because you're still muted. You hear me on the phone. You hear me, but I don't hear you. No, because I hear you only on the phone because you're muted. Okay, if you unmute, you're unmuted? Well, I don't talk. No, I only hear you on the phone. I don't hear you on the. Do you have a line where it says mute, stop video, participants, chat, share screen, forward reactions? Is that on the top of yours? Turn it on. See, this is what you have to call her about. Call Lydia. No. I see a picture of me too. I see my picture also, but I don't see you. I just see your name. And you're on it? That's good. Yeah, okay. Oh, there's the Cantor. I think I have I gotta put my sound on. Hi, Cantor Ness.
Hi, Roberta. How are you?
Fine. Do you see Lenny?
I'm sorry?
Do you see Lenny on your screen?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see him, but his name is there.
You see, yeah, he sees your name, but he doesn't see you. Oh, there's Sharon. Hi, Sharon.
Hey, Sharon.
What?
There you are. When I see your
But
face,
you're still
Sharon,
muted.
Sharon, when I see your face, I'm expecting someone to sing. It's so weird.
You hear what's going on?
I genuinely enjoyed it. I mean, it was a lot of fun.
Lenny, do you hear?
I got so many nice letters and emails. It
I'm
was
sure.
text. It was great.
How not? I mean, really, that was great.
Just got to figure out a date with Lydia to reshow it and how we're going to do it so we can get donations
Can
and
you
not
charge
get it
her
out
to
there.
reshow it? Can you charge to reshow it?
That's the point because we want to raise more funds.
Right, sure.
That's what people were suggesting, saying that if you do it again, people who couldn't make it Sunday can do that.
I mean, the thing
Yeah,
is,
'cause I missed it. I missed
Carlbach
it.
is there. A lot of people want to see her. So
I know. So I mean, so she just requested that she looks at the video before
Right.
and okays it. So that's happening probably
oh,
today.
that's what happens. Okay.
Lenny, do you hear what's going on there?
And then
I can't do that with my services.
no,
You
and
hear
then
everybody?
okays it, then Lydia will
Okay.
set the date.
I'm
But
gonna
that's
get off the phone.
Just looking for something.
Roberta.
Hi, Sharon. I couldn't attend. I had another commitment. So if you show
I
it,
have another commitment at 1:30 for our next Israel engagement thing, but I'm here for the first half hour anyway.
Oh, great.
I do what I can.
oh,
What's that, Roberta?
I said, now you have another commitment. So what you said?
1:30
Oh,
at 1:30.
I haven't
So
been
you'll-
to one of these before.
Oh, okay. Now Robin and I are meeting with our next people for our January 28th event. So
January. Good.
not January, July 28th.
Ah.
It's in 2 weeks. January.
Gonna say you're really planning ahead.
Oh, yeah, I know. I'm hoping everything will be great by January. Do you know, also too, Joseph, was people were writing about the trip because I mentioned the trip that was
I
canceled.
know. I can't believe
But
you
they
did.
wrote about that. They wrote, I want to go on that trip.
That would be fabulous. Oh my God, we can have a really great trip.
Yes.
Oh,
so
your
now
trip. Well,
we'll just be
it'll
sure to add the hospital as a stop now. Now that we've met Dr. Hannah and Micha's sister-in-law who works there.
Right. I'm just looking for
Pretty
what have
impressive place.
it'll be nice when we can all travel again.
Yes.
I
I'm supposed to go to a wedding on this weekend for an Israeli friend in California, and everybody's trying to talk me out of it, understandably.
Oh, really?
Oh, I'm very torn.
Why does mine say Finlandia, June?
Wait, say that
He's
again?
sharing his screen. He's showing you his screen.
I am
That's what he's
sharing.
doing.
I am sharing, right?
Yes, you are. It's fine. It's
Oh,
fine.
it says
Now,
Finlandia.
if I did
This
this,
is- You're watching his screen. He's setting it up.
Oh, okay.
We're just on early.
Oh,
Since I have to leave early, I figured I'd chat before.
songs of protest. Okay.
okay, there we are. By the way, but you can't see what's on your side. Can you see the whole screen or just part of it?
You're on like 3/4 of my screen, and on the side, I can have either you or I can set it on gallery and have as many people as I can have, which I have right now 6 people.
Yeah.
Oh,
Do
so
you have
okay.
pictures of all of us or just?
Wait, so do you see Cantor Joseph Ness 1 p.m. Monday, 13th July, that kind of thing?
Yes,
Okay, that's fascinating. I mean, it's interesting. Who knows about this stuff?
I know.
You
There
see
are
it
people that
differently
want to
as a
come on
host.
from Israel and stuff like that. So, maybe I could do something on Israeli rock and roll. I mean, there's so many subjects. It's just, when this thing I'm doing on protest now, it's certainly an incredible subject,
Oh, it's a very timely subject.
Well, that's why I kind of did it. So,
Yeah.
and well, we'll see what happens. I know I'm going to rush at the end because I have so much information. It's crazy. Hi, Marshall.
He's on mute.
No, he's not.
He is too. On mine he is.
Marshall?
No, he's again.
Oh,
He's
there
not.
he is. Hi, Marshall.
Hello, everybody. I
Hi.
can't see who's on, but hello, everybody.
If you go to your arrow under
Yeah,
the
no,
pictures, you'll see
did.
everybody.
Yeah, I just did it.
Hi, Bob. Bobby's on mute. Hi.
Sharon,
Yes,
concert was just wonderful.
I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Thank you for the nice note.
Oh, it was great, just beautiful. Hey,
Hi, Bobby.
hello, how you doing?
Much better, thank you.
That implies that you're not doing well for a while. Have you been ill?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
I was
okay?
ill for quite a while. Yeah.
I heard.
I'll talk to you about it sometime.
Okay,
I
okay.
heard.
Hi, Herb.
By the way, I have to tell you, a large, how can I say, one of the people that were definitely a very who kind of got me onto this was Herb. He wrote me an email, almost been about 2 months ago, and he said, maybe you should give some kind of lectures, on this. So then, it just kind of morphed, and I always remembered him telling me that. And so now you have all the nonsense that I'm giving you because of Herb.
It's
I think that was a
very-
good idea.
I think
Herb,
it's
you're muted.
Oh, hey, Rich.
They're all muted.
He's always from another place. Where is it, London you're in now?
Yeah, yes, that's London. How are you?
Hi. Where's Diane?
Diane, upstairs probably somewhere.
Oh,
If you don't know if you're upstairs or downstairs.
Hey, you're climbing walls. What's the difference?
Exactly. Oh, boy. Harold, hello. I know-
Okay, I'm in
Hey,
Hi,
Barbara.
but I'm gonna mute, Joseph. I'm gonna mute.
Wait a minute. Wait, that is Lincoln Center, Marshall, right?
Yeah, it's Metropolitan Opera.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I know that hall.
I have to get a different background. It's my messy office.
I think my background is the best. I kind of a dilapidated bookshelves.
I don't know. I think we're competing
Is
there.
the picture behind, Joseph, is the picture behind you, Rabbi Kessler?
That one?
The one behind you, the picture in the background,
I don't even know. Wait, hold on, let me turn around.
the larger picture.
Oh, no,
on the
that's actually me.
bottom.
That's me.
That's you? I can't
Someone took a picture.
see it.
Hold it up. I can't see it.
Oh, I'll show it.
Oh, yeah. That looks like you.
That's
Yeah.
me.
Looks like you.
Yeah, it is.
Marshall, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Bobby?
Good. Sandy well?
She is.
Good, good. Were you on this morning with the guys?
What was
Okay,
this morning?
I have to, just before we start, I have to say something. I know that Paul is on. I'm thinking Paul is a host also, make co-host. I'll do that right now. I hope I'm doing the right thing. What kind of has to happen, and occasionally people forget, especially when the music is playing, or I would say all the time, just mute yourselves. And then at the end, we can ask as many questions as we want. But, there's so much information I'm going to give, and now I'm going to start right now. So here we go. So I'm going to share the screen. Like there. Okie doke. So everybody sees, this is chat number 6. And it's entitled The Songs of Protest. So let's just get down to this is, first of all, let me make some preliminary comments. This is a really, really difficult subject. If only it could betray my feelings or someone else's feelings about what I think should be protested. And so I really don't intend on doing that as much as I can. I'd like to behave as a reporter would. Just, to tell you how the history or that kind of thing. So just know that if you feel I'm trying to be political, I'm doing my best not to. Okay, so let's go. Let's see. Anything else I want to say? Probably, but I'll remember. So a protest song, why don't we give a definition, is a song that's associated with a movement for social change and obviously part of a kind of broader category of, folk songs or songs on a lot of things. Songs connected to current events, for example. It may be a folk song, could be classical music, and that's something I certainly would like to bring out on some levels. Some. It could be commercial music, of which I will not bring out. And that could be for another lecture with another lecturer. So, and also the other thing I want to say about these songs, they're not personal songs particularly, but they're political songs. They're songs of a movement. And for this chat, we will stick with the Western world, including the USA, because there are, excuse me, there are protest songs from time immemorial, from all over the world, and I mean all over the world, from Vietnam, from Thailand, from Mongolia, from parts of all of Africa, everywhere, except maybe Antarctica. But I'm sure someone was protesting there because of the cold and maybe put a melody to it. So they're from all over. So to me, it seems that for the most part, protest songs are sung by people who at least feel that they're a minority who are being oppressed, or that they are a group, however small or large, that have, rightly or wrongly, that they are not being heard by the powers in charge. So if one takes a historic look at this, one can say that when the children of Israel were in Egypt, I would think that one or two of them may have wrote a poem and talked about the hardships of their life there. But let's, for the sake of our lecture, these songs cover a large array of topics: the abolition movement, women's suffrage, the labor movement, human rights for sure, civil rights, anti-war movement, the 1960s counterculture, feminist movement for sure, the sexual revolution, the gay rights movement, the animal rights movement, movements involving food issues, meat, vegetarianism, gun control, and now, if I can say bigly, environmentalism. So some protest songs deal with what injustice is presently happening. There was a song by the name Goodnight Irene. I don't know if you can, the people that I see, can you raise your hands on that? That was a song that was made popular by a guy named Leadbelly. He was a black convict and a social outcast. And on its face, it's a love song, to Irene. But because he was a convict and a social outcast, it carried on, based on the text, carried on the mantle of possible protest song. Here's another one that's could be controversial, but interesting, and I only mean to report it. The song Utsu Etza Vetufar in Hebrew is another one. So, what does that mean? They gave us orders to obey, but the orders did not materialize. Why? Because God is with us. And this song is typically a song sung on Purim. It's on Purim, okay? But this was appropriated by the Gush Emunim supporters. That they're not a group right now, but they were a group in Israel before. Right now, they've named themselves, I think, like something like Ne'emani Eretz Yisrael, those who are faithful to the land of Israel. So they've taken a group of old songs and invested them with a political meaning. So in their situation, they're saying, Utsu Etza Vetufar, you gave us orders, but blah, blah, blah. They were not, Ki Immanuel, for God is with us. That means to them that they believe that they have control over all of Israel, West Bank, everything. So, and I'm reporting. So that, but you can see how a song that has a liturgical impact in the first could be used for a kind of a political thing. So that's, let's see, how do I move this thing? This gentleman here is a man by the name of Jean Sibelius, born in 1865, then died, he lived a fairly long life, died in, I believe, 1957. Oh, it's there, right, 1957. And I was 3 years old. I never met him, but he's a wonderful composer. And this is a kind of a classical song of protest that I kind of realized, at least in my own mind. The piece is called Finlandia. It's a tone poem, not that long, about 7-8 minutes, something like that, written at the turn of the century, 1899. And it was composed for a specific concert that a conductor commissioned. And it was specifically a covert protest against increasing censorship and threats from the Russian Empire. and the Russians had great control over the Finland area at that point. The premiere was in 1900 in Helsinki. And in order to avoid the Russian censorship, Finlandia had to be performed under other names at that point. So titles that were masqueraded is probably the best word to say, and somewhat often confusing, were like, one of them was Happy Feelings and the Awakening of Finnish Spring, or A Scandinavian Choral March. But most of the piece is evoking the struggle of the Finnish people vis-a-vis the Russian Empire. And so, but towards the end, a kind of a calm comes over the orchestra, and this beautiful Finlandia hymn is heard, which you'll hear it. And it's kind of often cited as a traditional folk melody. It's not really, because that is Sibelius' own creation. So let's hear a little of it. It's about 8 minutes long. We'll hear the opening minute and then the last 3 minutes. And that I just want to evoke the beauty and note the harshness of it when it starts out to obviously denote the Russian chokehold that had on Finland at the time. So this is, if I can get the arrow going, here we go. Oh, it doesn't work. That's not good. I'm sorry about this. This may be a problem. I'm not sure what to do. I'll try something else. Yeah, none of this works.
Is your
Okay.
sound
I'm
on
sorry.
the, is the sound off on the screen?
No, it's not. The sound isn't off. It doesn't go on. That would not work. I'm sorry about this. I'm going to have to stop it. Give me a second. I'm going to try whatever I know, and I don't know how to do. Oh,
Cantor, if you can find the song on YouTube, you could play it there and then just share your screen with the web browser up.
okay. I'll try that. Well, I'm going to just try one more time.
Okay.
This. One second. I thought I had it for a second. I apologize. Let me ask this question. Can you see the screen now? Can you see the screen?
Not right now, no.
Can you hear it?
We could before, but I don't hear it now.
Yeah, there was music for a moment.
I think people know the piece pretty well. It's one of the most nationalistic pieces I've ever heard. I love Sibelius.
Can you hear it?
Yes.
One second. Okay, let's try this one more time, and otherwise I'm not sure what I'm going to do. There's so much on here. I can't share all of it on the screen. I'm not sure what to do at this point, Paul. I'm so sorry. I'm going to turn my computer off for a second and see if I can redo it. I think I'm going to do that. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Just give me 3 minutes.
All right.
Is anybody hearing sound?
I'm not.
No,
Joseph, I sent you an email with to your personal email account with Finlandia on it. Joseph, there's no sound.
Can everybody hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, we'll start now. Okay, I apologize about this technical detail here, but now we will share and we will go to the, hopefully this is work now. And here is the opening of the Sibelius Finlandia. And this is the folk tune. Etc. So what we find out is, let's go to something else. So songs that, we talked about songs that talk about a specific event, or they might be abstract, for example, expressing in more general terms, opposition to injustice, support for peace, or free thought. You take even the Beethoven last movement of the Ninth Symphony, the Ode to Joy, is kind of a song in support of universal brotherhood. It's a setting of a poem by Friedrich Schiller, celebrating the continuum of living beings who are, in a certain sense, united for their capacity of feeling pain and pleasure, and hence, because of that, for empathy, to which Beethoven himself added the lines that all men are brothers. That's not part of the Schiller poem. Beethoven adds that. Oh, friends, Not these sounds, let us instead strike up more pleasing and more joyful ones as brethren. And I could play that, but I won't because of this. We will go on to the next thing. Israel, for example, is a country that obviously has tremendous political differences, as does the United States, if I may be so bold. You know, in 1995, minutes before Yitzhak Rabin was murdered at that political rally in, I believe it's November 1995, there was a pop song called Shir LaShalom, a song for peace. This song, originally written as early as 1969, which is 3 years after the 7-Day War, had I'm not sure what the view now is, but had one of the anthem of the Israeli peace movement. So let's just listen to a little of that. Etc. That is a kind of a pop tune, an Israeli pop tune that could be described as a song of protest. Those who feel that, a government is going too far to left or right. But in that case, I would assume they were thinking that things were, I'm not even sure they were talking about the government. They just wanted peace. So that was Shir LaShalom. The next song I'll introduce in this manner. The theme may have been taken from a passage in Woody Guthrie's autobiography, Bound for Glory, where Guthrie compares his political sensibility to newspapers blowing in the winds of New York City, streets and alleys. So Bob Dylan was certainly familiar with Guthrie's work. His reading of it had been a major turning point in his political and intellectual development. So in 1962, I believe he's 21, 22 years old. Here are his comments from Bob Dylan. In colloquial English, of course, there ain't too much I can say about this song, that is the Blowing in the Wind song, except that the answer is blowing in the wind. It ain't in no book or movie or TV show or discussion group. Man, it's in the wind. And it's blowing in the wind. Too many of these hip people are telling me where the answer is, but I don't believe it. I still say it's in the wind, and just like a restless piece of paper, it's got to come down somehow. And he goes on, but the only trouble is that no one picks up the answer when it comes down. So not too many people get to see and know, and then it flies away. Continuing, and this is fascinating, especially in the politics of our time. I still say that some of the biggest criminals are those that turn their heads away when they see wrong and know it's wrong. I'm only 21 years old. I guess he was 21. And I know that there's been too many wars. You people over 21, you're older and smarter. Now, the thing about blowing the wind is interesting. And I did some research this week on it, obviously, for this lecture, for this chat. It's a different kind of song than his earlier songs. For example, he writes a song, I don't know if some of you know the song, The Ballad of Donald White. Does anyone remember that song? Possibly not, the Ballad of Donald White. And so he was a criminal and he was executed, and Bob Dylan didn't want him executed, so he wrote this ballad, right? What's different about Blowing in the Wind is that blowing in the wind could be applied to any freedom issue, anytime. You know, it's from moving for the particular, meaning Donald White specifically, to the general. And the general can be replayed at any time, you know, in history. So let's just hear a little bit of this. If any of you don't know this piece, I'd be surprised.
How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? How many seas must the white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? How many times must the cannonballs fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many years can a mountain exist before it's washed to the sea? How many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? How many times can a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
And obviously, as I say in my other lectures, I wish we can listen to these whole pieces, but for the sake of you know, making this work, we have to move on. I'm going to go from the American song, and we're going to go into discussion of the Bund. The Bund was found in Vilnius, on October 7th, 1897. It is by activists of the Marxist group in that city, Jewish. It seeks to unify all Jewish workers in the Russian Empire as a part of a unified socialist party. Although the term Jewish is in the name of the party, its founders do not want to create a specifically Jewish party. There are no social democrats working in the Jewish environment and using the Yiddish language. For them, the party is a kind of a detachment of the Russian socialist movement working in a Jewish environment. The Bund distributes a quality underground press in Yiddish, obviously, that resists Tsarist repression. So it was a very important secular socialist party opposed to what was the kind of what they would call reactionary traditional Jewish life in Russia. The rabbis did not like the Bund. The Bund marked the break of a Jewish tradition rooted in the communities of Russia. Some of them, atheists, became an article of faith. Atheism became an article of faith, as similar as their forefathers were God-fearing Orthodox Jews. The Bund opposed Zionism. By the way, this is Arkady Kremer, who is the founder of the Bund, and I want to give you that background for these next authors that are profoundly interesting and play a large part in some of the music that I would consider to be Jewish protest music. So this is Shlomo Ansky, who is a writer, a journalist, specialist of folklore and Yiddish culture. What he's really known for is a piece called the Dybbuk, which is one of the great Jewish books, you know, of that time. He wrote a piece called Die Shvua, which became the anthem. Die Schwur is the oath, and that becomes the anthem of the Bund and is sung during, actually, even now when there's memory of the Warsaw Getting Uprising, that piece is sounding. So let's listen to a little of Die Schwur. And there's the text so you can look at it.
Brüder und Schwestern von Arbeit und Neut, alle von seinen zu Seid und zu Spreit, zusammen, zusammen, die von sie's gerät, sie flattert von Zorn, von Blut ist sie reit, a Schwur, auf Leben und Tod. Brüder und Schwestern von Arbeit und Not, alle seinen zu Seid und zu Spreit, zusammen, zusammen, die von sie's gerät, sie flattert von Zorn, vom Blut ist sie reit, a Schwur, auf Leben und Tod. Himmel und Erde und seis Herren, jedes wird sein, die wichtige Sterne, a Schwur von Tränen, wir schweren.
Die Schwur, the oath. Another wonderful author, a writer, was a man born in 1922, died in 1944, obviously murdered. And Hirsch Glick is his name. He's Lithuanian. At the age of 13, he composes his first poems in Hebrew. He is part of a uprising in the Vilnius ghetto, and he writes a very famous song about that uprising. He is murdered ultimately in 1944 in that ghetto. But the song is a song called Zog Nit Keinmal, never say. And what is very interesting about this recording is by Paul Robeson, who goes to Russia, I believe is in 1949, goes to Moscow, because he had leanings toward Marxism, communism, in this country. He was a lawyer, an incredibly intelligent man, sang a whole bunch of Jewish Yiddish songs. I believe he spoke Yiddish on some levels. He had many friends in Russia who were Jewish. And so he goes to one of the friends, I think his name was Raisin, if I'm not sure. And Raisin is already incarcerated by the communist, by Stalin, and will die. And Paul Robeson, this is a friend, so he goes to Raisin and says, no, excuse me, it was Pfeffer. Pfeffer is the name of the gentleman, a wonderful poet. And he goes to him and he says, how are you? And Pfeffer goes, he can't talk because everything's bugged. And, he kind of intimates to Robeson to go back to the United States and tell everybody what's going on. Robeson doesn't exactly do that. I'm not sure why, but he, in that concert, he sings, the last song he sings is Zog Nit Keinmal. And that was a major statement to Stalin of his dislike of what was going on to his friends. But here we go, Paul Robeson, Zog Nit Keinmal. The voice is spectacular.
Песни еврейского гетто, оккупированной немцами Варшавы.
Keinmal als du gehst dem letzten Wege, den Himmeln bleien verstellen bläue Tage, weil kommen wird noch unser euch gebänkte Schau, uns wird abbeugt und unser Trott mir sein in Blau, weil kommen wird noch unser euch gebänkte Schau, uns wird abbeugt und unser Trott mir sein in Blau. Palmenland bis Weidenland von Schnee. Wir seien da mit unser Pein, mit unser Weh. Und wenn gefallen ist spritzt von unser Blut, wird noch sprotzt von unser Geburt, unser Mut. Und wenn gefallen sie, so spritzt von unser Blut, wird noch gesprotzt an unser Geburt, unser Mut. Geschrieben ist das Lied mit Blut und nicht mit Blei. Es ist nicht ein Lied von so einem Vogel auf der Frei. Das hat der Volk zwischen Fallen die gewendet. Das Lied gesungen mit ner Gammes in die Hand. Das hat der Volk zwischen Fallen die gewendet. Das Lied gesungen mit ner Gammes in die Hand.
And that was the audience in Moscow giving an ovation. The next author that I'd like to discuss is a man by the name of David Edelstadt, born in 1866. He's a Russian poet, not Yiddish, Russian poet, Jewish, Russian-Jewish family. He gets hit in 1881, a pogrom, during which in the Kiev area, which Jews of that area were murdered, violently attacked. He goes to the hospital. When he's in the hospital, his doctor talks about, his doctor actually helps a lot of the Jews that were in the hospital finally escape to the United States, of which he takes that road. When he gets to the United States, he writes in Yiddish, not Russian, in Yiddish. So among his poems, very, very powerful stuff, are Mein Zwoe, my testament, or In Kampf, in combat. Now, the text of my testament has obvious revolutionary overtones. And obviously he was very, very against the Tsarist government. And when, you know, Lenin and the communists take over, actually, no, this is before that. So he's against that kind of thing. So he, in this song, he talks about a different kind of government, a government that is powerful, a government that takes care of people, but uses their power for good and not bad.
Die freie Fahrt, die treue Fahrt, spritzt mit Blut von Arbeitsmann. Die freie Fahrt, die treue Fahrt, spritzt mit Blut von Arbeitsmann. Und dort unten von dem singt mir mein Lied, mein freie Lied, mein Lied in Kampf, und singt die Gegend, ein Verschlag in Christen hin. Mein Lied in Kampf, und singt die Gegend, ein Verschlag in Christen hin.
So, and it goes on, but let me just, hold on. So again, in this song, what he talks about is that the blood in the course of the workers' struggle brings the cause to the struggle of the worker that creates a better life, not only for Jews, but for Christian, all victims of all enslaved people. Christians and Jews alike. And then with that kind of red blood, and which is funny, ironically, it becomes the symbol of the communist flag, obviously the red flag, but that victory will come, maybe not in his lifetime, but with his, there's a lot of reference to swords and bloodshed and pain. This is just not a normal passive lament, but it's a crying out for something, justice to happen to the downtrodden of that area. So that is David Edelstadt. He is, I think, 1866. He's about 25 when he finally, he lives about 25 years. So these are people that really have not lived very long. The next one is Mordechai Gebertig, a very famous composer and poet. He's born in 1877, dies in 1942. And he's a Yiddish-speaking Polish person, gets involved in the Bund, as the others did too. For him, Jewish life must continue in Poland and not in Palestine. Socialism must replace religion, and Yiddish must become the language of the Jewish masses. He writes about 100 songs filled with social meaning, lullabies, nostalgic songs, passing by the revolutionary song Arbeit Solar Marsch. The most known song that he writes is Unser Städtel brennt, or for some people know it as Sprent. It's a song of revolt written after the Pritschik pogrom of 1938, which was sung by the ghetto fighters. He was murdered in the Krakow ghetto on June 4th, 1942. The text, "It is burning, dear brothers, it is burning. Our poor town, a pity it burns. Furious winds blow, breaking, burning, and scattering, and you stand around with folded arms. Oh, you stand and look while our town burns." Some of you may know this song. It's sometimes sung at Holocaust gatherings. As a matter of fact, we've done it in our Holocaust programs here. So here, listen. Now, this is a very interesting film. There's an older Jewish gentleman from Krakow who actually remembers the song, and listen to this. We'll do the whole thing for this one. This is really very interesting.
En nogmaals zing je het lied van Mordechai Gebertig, was wordt geschreven beim Pogrom van 1936. Nog om zing je, want du hat gewohnt, aber welchen Stieg weiß man nicht, die Menschen leben schon nicht von die Zeiten. Ich einfach jetzt singen. Es brennt, Brüderlich, es brennt, oi unser Ohren Städtelnebach brennt, weiße Winden mit der Gosen, reißen Bachen und zerblosen, starker noch die wilde Flammen, als herum schon brennt, und ihr steht und guckt, als soll sich mit verleigten Händen, und ihr steht und guckt, als soll sich, wie unser Städtel brennt. Es brennt, Brüderlich, es brennt, die Hilfe ist nur in euch allein gewöhnt. Ob du Städtli sagt Heier, nehmt die Keilem, löscht aus Feier, löscht mit Eier Eigenblut. Man weiß, dass ihr das kennt, steht nicht Brüder, oder soll sich mit verleigten Händen. Steht nicht Brüder, löscht aus Feier, unser Städtel brennt. Das ist alles, was es ist ein Lied, was es geblieben. Hat geschrieben die Wörter, hat geschrieben die Melodie, aber not hat nicht gekannt. Aber andere haben das geschrieben, also alle Lieder sind geblieben. In die anderen Länder, in Amerika, dort in Frankreich, nicht in Frankreich, in Deutschland auch gewesen, aber so in England, also in Südamerika. Ist alles geblieben. Ja.
So the Bund was a very, very powerful organization in the first part for the Jewish population. This picture is an open air gathering of the Bundes Youth Organization in Warsaw in 1932, right before things got really, really bad. I want to play none of these songs that I just played were Bund songs particularly. In other words, that not sung by the masses. This was, it's a kind of an interesting song. It's called in alle Gassen, everywhere you look, there's trouble. That's where the meaning. And there's a phrase that says, "Down with the police, down with the police." Unbelievable, but this is the Bund song.
In alle Gassen, wo man geht, hört man Sabberstockes. Kinder, Leder, Kind und Geld, stoßen und Revockes. Jingler,
noch weder hin und her, ich muss ein Kumpel Banges. Genug schon wieder Horven, genug schon Borgenleien. Mach das aber Stocke, lo mir Brüder sich Parteien. Mach das aber Stocke, lo mir Brüder sich Parteien. Brüder und Schwester, lo mit dem Gräben die Hand. Lo in die Kolleiker in der Brechen die Wend. Hey, hey, da loi, hoi, hey, da loi, da bin ich
etc. So you see, there was a tremendous amount of pain and anger and hurt based on how these people were treated, and that goes for anyone who involves themselves, many in these protest songs. But that's a little history of the Yiddish. I want to do one other. This picture here, the short guy is a guy by the name of Hans Eisler, born in 1898. His father, from a Jewish father and a non-Jewish mother. He is an Austrian who is best known for composing, you ready for this one, the national anthem of East Germany. And he has a very long artistic association with that taller guy who, some of you may know the name Bertolt Brecht, a wonderful playwright. I mean, anyone who studies the history of drama and theater, he is a major, major figure in the first half of the 20th century. So, by the way, we're going back to Eisler. He's one of the first Schoenberg, that is Arnold Schoenberg disciples. He studies with him from about 4 years in Berlin. Also in Berlin, he becomes a supporter of the Communist Party of Germany and becomes with the November Group and other groups like that. In 1928, he teaches at, you ready for the name of this school? The Marxist Workers' School in Berlin. His music becomes, at that point, increasingly oriented toward political themes, that is specifically protest songs, and obviously to Schoenberg's dismay, because Schoenberg is all about art music. And then he also, Eisler goes into jazz and cabaret, an incredibly interesting composer that not too many heard about. He's really, really, really good. I mean, people heard of Kurt Weill. I know members of my congregation have, because, you know, we do the Kurt Weill Kiddush. This guy is every bit as good. He's really wonderful, really wonderful. We should do more of his music. But he goes to the United States, and he's, you know, first he writes music for theater and all that stuff, but it's interrupted by the Cold War. This is after World War II. He's one of the first artists placed in the Hollywood blacklist. He, in one of his interrogations, they call him the Karl Marx of music, but he was a self-professed communist. So, by the way, at that point, you get the guy to admit they're a communist, then you kick him out of the country. So his supporters included, who wanted him to stay, who pushed for him to stay, Charlie Chaplin, Igor Stravinsky, the composer, Aaron Copland, who has a history very interesting for himself, and another guy who has a fairly interesting history, Leonard Bernstein. All these guys pushed for him to stay. He was like a major, major artist. By the way, if you've heard of Woody Guthrie, protested the composer's deportation. He was deported ultimately to Germany. He protested that deportation with a song called Eisler on the Go. I'm sure you probably don't know it, but that was one of Woody Guthrie's thousands of songs. He wrote so much music. And so, by the way, the reason why I include him, because he's originally a classical composer, meaning he takes the traditions and does what he needs to do with it. But then he says, I reject purely orchestral music as not being suitable for the workers' music repertoire. And then he goes for the creation of simple, direct songs. He says, all music forms and techniques must be developed to suit the express purpose that that is the class struggle. So in practice, that will not result in what the middle class and upper class call style. In the workers' music movement, we do not aspire to style, but to new methods of musical technique which will make it possible to use music and the class struggle better and more intensively. I can go on with this, but we're going to go on to an example. This is the Solidarity song. Forward and don't forget what our strength is when starving and eating. Forward and never forget solidarity. You can read it while this thing is going on. It's in German, and boy, is it in German. So here we go. But if any of you know the music of Kurt Weill, you will know some similarities. Think the Three Penny Opera and stuff like that. Okay, here we go.
Solidaritätslied. Auf ihr Völker dieser Erde, einigt euch in diesem Sinn, dass sie jetzt die eure werde und die große Lehrerin. Wollen wir es schnell erreichen, brauchen wir noch dich und dich. Wer im Stich lässt seinesgleichen, lässt ja nur sich selbst im Stich. Unsere Herren, wer sie auch seien, sehen unsere Zwietracht gern.
Etc. So you see almost a very military feel to the song. I don't know if you read the words while you're listening to the music, but it really, it's fascinating, this stuff, fascinating. I'm going to go now, and we're going to move fairly quickly, obviously. We will now go to, should I skip this? Well, I'm going to just talk for a little about it. This is a composer, Louis Moreau Gottschalk, who was born in New Orleans from a Jewish father and a Creole mother. He really he's an amazing pianist, and he uses the European tradition with the goal of taking the Creole music and making it kind of artistic. He is obviously born in New Orleans, so he's part of the South, and this is during a Civil War, and he is a big fan, not a fan, but he loves General McClellan. That is the man who works in the Virginia corridor during the Civil War, and he writes a piece in honor of him called Union. And the thing about Union is that it's kind of begins with a typical battle peace rumble, which was traditionally delegated to like cannon shots and stuff, but he puts it on the piano with these rumbling chords in the piano. Just listen to this. But what's fascinating is he employs three tunes: the Star Spangled Banner, Over the Columbia, and Yankee Doodle. So we're not going to listen to the whole thing, but just give you a sense of that opening at least. And this is about the Union. He calls it the Union in honor of the soldiers that are trying to. He was very much against slavery, so this is in honor of the Army of the North. Come on, Joseph. Here we go. Very difficult. And here comes, listen to the Star Spangled Banner now. And we're going to move on to what I want to do is play the last part of this piece. etc. So, but this was a piece that people regarded as a kind of a protest song, not with words, but in his area in New Orleans, they did not appreciate it. Obviously, the army in the North did. So we're going to, another example of a piece that's a kind of a protest song, and you wouldn't believe it, is the Fanfare for the Common Man by Aaron Copland. Now, Aaron Copland had some ties with the Communist Party in this country. I don't think many of you know that. And he was commissioned to write a piece called, this is during 1942, 1943, I think. But it was called, Fanfare for Soldiers or Fanfare for Sailors or Airmen, because they were, they were fighting in the war. So he says that, yeah, it's my idea to make these fanfares stirring and significant contributions for the war effort. But then he changes his mind and he says, if it's agreeable with you, I'm all for honoring not the army men, but the common man. And so he even goes to say, because taxes those days in 43 and 44 were incredibly huge. In 1942, 1 in 7 taxpayers had managed to save enough from their wages to pay the federal government. So, obviously, because we were in war, the taxes were incredibly high. And he had some allegiances to the Communist Party in this country. And so he calls it not fanfare for soldiers, he calls it fanfare for the common man who can't pay their taxes. And when Eisenhower found this out, because they wanted to play this piece at one of the inaugural balls, they didn't allow it. So just to give you a little hint, we're not going to play the whole thing, even though it's very short. But when I say fanfare for the common man, just give you a sense of what it sounds like. Etc. I hate to do that, but that's what has to be done. We're going to go for. There's so much more to say. Strange Fruit. This is a poem and the music by Abel Meeropol. He was born in 1903, born to Russian Jewish immigrants in the Bronx. By the way, he's a teacher. He teaches, one of the students of his is James Baldwin, if the Black author, if you know that name. Meeropol was a communist for a time and very sympathetic to Julius and Ethel Rosenberg. I think you know those names, I hope. They were husband and wife, who were convicted on spying for the Soviet Union. So, by the way, after they're executed, this is Meeropol and his wife, adopt their 2 boys. He adopts the Rosenbergs, 2 sons, Michael and Robert, and they take the name Meeropol. So it's an amazing story for those of you that don't know. So he's white. He's a Jewish teacher and member of the American Communist Party. And he writes this poem, Strange Fruit. This poem exposes the sheer brutality of racism in the United States at the time by a way of a very stark, powerful description of a postcard. I have that postcard, the picture. I decided not to put it. It's a picture of 2 black men hanging, and I didn't think it was appropriate for this thing, but it's very powerful, very, very horrible. So so he sets his lyrics later to music, and then Billie Holiday gets a hold of it, and Billie Holiday, born in 1915, I believe in New York, one of the great jazz singers of the 20th century, takes this and sings. So let's listen to a little of her singing. Beautiful, and just it's a very powerful poem, and this really speaks to the horrible racism in this country. And by the way, just as another before we start, so she first begins to perform the song at this place called Cafe Society, but she was afraid of retaliation because the poem is pretty brutal against the white, class, whatever. But anyway, this is here it goes.
Southern trees bear a strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root. Black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. Pastoral scene of the gallant South, the bulging eyes and the twisted mouth, scent of magnolia, sweet and fresh. Then the sudden smell of burning flesh. Here is a fruit for the crows to pluck,
etc. The song doesn't last too much longer than that, but very profoundly beautiful. What a great singer she was. Again, this song, Strange Fruit, are talking of those the black people who were it was a symbol of them just hanging from the tree, strange way, and how are they treated that way? We're going to move past the Joe Hill, Paul Robeson piece. Actually, let me just give you a little of it. Joe Hill was a composer of songs. He was accused of murder. He was executed, but more famous than his songs, there was a song written about him called "I Dream I Saw Joe Hill Last Night." Earl Robinson sent it to music about a decade after Joe Hill died. Just a very little of it. Here's Paul Robeson again.
I dreamed I saw Joe Hill last night, alive as you and me. Says I, but Joe, you're 10 years dead. I never died, says he. I never died, says he. The copper bosses killed you, Joe. They shot you, Joe, says I. Takes more than guns to kill a man, says Joe. I didn't die, says Joe. I didn't die.
And this is a protest song because it talks another example of someone who was accused of murder and kind of an outlier, and connects directly to the treatment of the black population in this country at that time. And we're talking about the 30s and 40s. Here's an interesting figure. James Brown, born in 1933, dies in 2006. He's an American singer, songwriter, musician, band leader. He was one of the first guys who involved themselves in funk music. And he's referred to by the nicknames Godfather of Soul and Soul Brother #1, blah, blah, blah. His career lasted about 50 years. So he's really been very prolific. He writes a song, Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud. I want you to listen to this. This is a funk song performed by him and yeah, it's self-descriptive. It's a little loud, but here we go.
We get what we deserve. We've been built and we've been scorned. We've been big bad talked about as sure as you moan. Just as sure as it takes 2 eyes to make a pair. Brother, we can't quit until we get our share. Say it loud. Say it loud. One more time. Say it loud. I worked on jobs with my feet in my hand. You know, all the work I did was for the other man.
And then we have Woody Guthrie, who is one of the most significant figures in American folk music, an anti-fascist. He writes a song called This Land Is Your Land. I'm sure most of you know it. We will not play it today, but this is one of the verses sounds like this. By the way, he writes This Land Is Your Land he hears Kate Smith singing God Bless America. So he wants to call it God Blessed America for Me. That was his original title, but they told him, his publisher said, that's not really good, you can get sued, blah, blah, blah. So he calls it This Land Is Your Land. But let me just give you one verse. One bright sunny morning in the shadow of the steeple, by the relief office, I saw my people as they stood hungry. I stood there wondering if this land was made for you and me. What an example of a song that is a protest song. We move on quickly. This is a photograph of Martin Luther King. If you notice on his left, I don't know if any of you recognize that man with the hat on his left. That is our Rabbi Stanley Kessler when he was marching with Martin Luther King in Selma. And I thought that this would be an interesting picture to look at this time. Obviously, I have just very quickly, I'm going to a minute or two of this speech, and then we're almost done.
All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper. If I lived in China or even Russia or any totalitarian country, maybe I could understand some of these illegal injunctions. Maybe I could understand the denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they haven't committed themselves to that over there. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right. And so just as I say we aren't going to let any dogs or water hoses turn us around, we aren't going to let any injunction turn us around. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop. like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
This is a CBS News special report.
Dan Rather reporting for CBS News from New York. The Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. was shot to death by an assassin late today as he stood on a balcony in Memphis, Tennessee. Dr. King had planned to lead another civil rights march in Memphis next Monday. We got the latest on the story now.
Pete Seeger.
Here's a song you can help me on. A great song. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome.
I'd like to end with going back to the what I would call the classical repertoire. I was looking for a piece that describes a protest song, and I have to go back to Beethoven. It's just what it is. The opera he writes, Fidelio, is all about freedom. That's the total topic. Matter of fact, it's not the greatest opera in the world, possibly because it might not get into the psyches of the characters. It's all about freedom. And one of the most powerful musical utterances about freedom is this piece called O welche Lust, or what joy in the open air. Freely to breathe again. Up here alone is life. The dungeon is a grave. And this is at the end of Act 1 where the prisoners are released. These prisoners, these who were held unjustly by Pizarro. And so I play with this, and just I would say it's 2 minutes, and our chat, I know it's long, our chat is over, but I want you to listen to the profundity of the music. And so this is well, I have nothing else to say but listen.
Beste Reise, haltet euch zurück. Wir sind belauscht mit Augenblick. Wir sind belauscht mit Augenblick.
And that is the lecture for today. Thank you all. I'm sorry it went longer than it had to. I had some technical difficulties in the beginning, so thank you all so much for it really means a lot to me.
Joseph,
Joseph.
you talked about the Ballad of Hill by Bob Dylan.
The Ballad of Joe Hill is not by Bob Dylan. That's a piece composed by Earl Robinson.
Oh, okay. But there was also a protest song called Hurricane by Bob Dylan.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Do you remember that song about Reuben Hurricane Carter, about how he's falsely imprisoned?
That's an example, not like Blowing in the Wind, where it's about one specific person. Reuben Carter was a boxer, I believe, or something, you know.
It was, yes.
But that was, the thing about Blowing in the Wind that makes it a little more usable is because you can use it for anything. It's
right.
That's the difference.
Specific.
Those kind of protest songs for one specific thing, or if you get less focused on one thing, like Blowing in the Wind, you can use it for anything.
Correct.
Any questions that I can't answer?
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joseph.
Absolutely.
Gracias.
Stirring music, just really something. Yeah. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Joseph. Thank you, Joseph.
Absolutely. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joseph, well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Great class.
From all of us in Israel.
Oh, hey, Johnny. It's a pleasure. Real pleasure.
Looking forward to your talk on St. Petersburg's Mass next week.
It's going to definitely happen. Definitely going to happen.
Well done, well done.
Take care. And I see Wes Nichols is here too. That's wonderful. Oh my God. Take care, everybody. We'll see
About
you.
some more James Brown.
He was really good. I have to say, James Brown really could do it. No question.
The Godfather of Soul. Absolutely. All right. Joseph, well done.
Thank you, Wes.
I enjoyed it, especially. I was hoping maybe your music would reflect more like Gottschalk's music. It's like Wellington's Victory without any rifle shots.
We're talking about the Gottschalk, right?
Yeah, the Gottschalk. Yeah.
But it's an amazing. It's I used it because here's a man who is for the Union big time.
Mm-hmm.
And he did that. It was fascinating, the whole thing, I think.
No, I dig it. I thought it was great. Well, I'm very impressed. I love what you're doing. Thanks for inviting me. My God, what did you think of? How'd you do that?
I remember you said you might want to come on, and then I wrote a note to Lydia, who takes care of all this stuff, and she sent it to you. So
yeah. Well, don't forget me again.
I'm not.
Although I'm very shy, I don't mind if you see me, but I don't think anybody else needs.
By the way, for those of you who are here, Wes Nichols is one of the great oboe players that I know. Really,
we try.
Ask him if he ever played.
Oh, the St. Petersburg Mass, right?
Yeah, ask him if he's ever played in the St. Petersburg Mass by Tchaikovsky.
Amazing. Can hear that.
Anyway.
All right. Well, I got to get back to work.
Okay.
I got to go make reads, Joseph.
I know you do.
I'll call you on the banana phone. I'll be there anytime.
Take care, everybody. Take
Bye.
care.
Good night. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Harold, take care. Harold, you're saying something. I can't hear you. Can you unmute yourself or? I can't hear you. But I want to know what you're saying. Yeah, it's not coming through. Okay, take care, everybody. Take care, Annette,
Bye-bye.
Leah, Sharon, Linda, Esther.